Hello, everyone. I'm Must Be Tuesday, and this is the beginning of day two of Fuzzy Logic 2. I'm excited to be here, and I'm excited that you're here. Um, I just want to let you know what we've got coming up for today. After my presentation, which is right now, later on, we're going to have a Sayonara Wild Hearts analysis by Freya's Spirit, a Legend of Zelda Minish Cap Randomizer by Chaya Aaron, and an Undertale character analysis by Sporadic Erratic. And it looks like it's going to be a really fun day. Yesterday was a lot of fun. I really liked it. So I'm excited to see all of those things. And first, I'm going to do a presentation on trans representation I saw in the media before the year 2000. Um, Hello, Sealy Faye. Hello, Nyan Nyan Binary. Hi, Chaya Aaron. um, so I've got Garbi the Glitchers with me today. Hi, Garbi.
Hello, I'm excited to hear this and to hear like about this. I kind of my history is more of like later than 2000s or like late 2090s to early 2000s. So
Hmm.
if I have any thoughts, I might share my perspective on
Yeah,
that.
yeah, for sure. And I really appreciate you being here, so I have someone to chat to.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah. So, um, let's see. I should give a warning before we start the that there's going to be transphobia referenced in this presentation, and at least one reference to, at least two references to sexual assault, and there's going to be spoilers. I'm not going to hold back on spoilers for any of these shows. I'm not going to well, yeah, I'll just say I'm not going to hold back on spoilers. Um, oh, thank you so much, Meg, for the 32 months. Wow. um, and also, there's going to be one image that looks like nudity. It's actually a bodysuit, but it looks like nudity. So, those are, I think, all my warnings. So, um, let's get going. So, why am I making this presentation? I want to analyze my feelings because thinking about like the difference between how things comparing then and now, I list third, but like comparing the difference between what it was like in the 90s to now, uh, it it gives me a feeling or two. um, yeah, I want to inform younger people about what it was like, and because I know that things can be stressful when looking at how people talk about trans people and things like that. And I'm hoping to leave people with the feeling that it could be so much worse than it is now. I don't know if that's I don't know. I don't know if that's a positive feeling, but I feel like it is. um, so, what am I going to talk about? Mostly Ace Ventura, if I'm being honest, because that was kind of where the idea for this presentation came from, was thinking about Ace Ventura and how, uh, honestly, how different it was than I remembered it, and I'm kind of mad about it. Uh, and then I'm also going to talk about lots of other movies, shows, songs, and games from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I'm going to talk about the general atmosphere, mostly in the 90s. I'm going to talk about feelings. I've got a lot of feelings. So, who am I? I'm Must Be Tuesday Music. I'm genderqueer. My pronouns are they and them. I was born in 1982. So I was a kid in the 80s and I was a teenager in the 90s. And for context, I'm Canadian. So we get a lot of American media in Canada, but it's a little different here and there. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. Sealy Face says, I'll take that victory. Today's media isn't perfect by a long shot, but it's so much better about some things. It really is. And Meg had said transphobia in the 90s? It's more likely than you think. So, the first thing I'm going to talk about is Lola. Do you know this song, Garby? Lola by the Kinks?
I do not know the song.
It came out in 1970, so obviously before I was born, but I definitely heard it a lot. Um, it's the one the chorus says, "L-O-L-A Lola, L-O-L-A Lola." Um, there was a Weird Al parody of it called Yoda. Um, it's uh, it's actually kind of a nice story. It's just about sort of like hooking up with a woman at a bar, and she's trans, and it's like, uh, it it's I kind of feel like it's pretty positive. Um, it's not like making fun of her for being trans, if you know what I mean. There is one joke that probably doesn't hold up. Yeah, it doesn't hold up because the joke hinges on referring to Lola as a man. But it's a double meaning thing. It ends with, I am what I am, and I'm glad I'm a man, and so is Lola. And so the double meaning is she's also glad I'm a man, but you can also hear it as I'm glad Lola's a man. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
so it doesn't hold up, but most of the song is just like um talking about meeting her and and going home together and stuff. And I don't know, it's a good song. Oh, Sealy Faye is quoting the Weird Al song. I met him in a swamp down in Dagobah where it bubbles all the time like a giant carbonated soda. YODA Yoda. um, yeah, so it's a very famous song, this Lola song, and I probably should have found the lyrics so I could quote more of them. It's like, I'm not the world's most passionate guy, but when I looked in her eyes, I almost fell for my Lola. Part of it says girls will be boys, boys will be girls. It's a mixed up, muddled up, shook up world, except for Lola. So saying that she's not mixed up, she knows exactly who she is, I guess. Yeah, anyway, it's a good song. I'm going to go on to the next one. Rocky Horror Picture Show came out in 1975. And have you seen this movie, Garby?
No, I've heard about it. I've heard its depiction has been regarded as not the best, but I haven't seen it myself.
Well, it's interesting because it would definitely be considered problematic, but it's also kind of really unapologetic about that. It's like at the time, this was like the very first time that a lot of people saw queerness represented on screen, and it's basically like it's supposed to be weird and it's supposed to be campy, and two very straight people end up having to knock on the door of this big castle because they're like stranded because their car breaks down or something, or they run out of gas, and they end up being confronted by like gender weirdness and different sexualities and stuff. And there's like and this character in this image, Dr. Frankenfurter, is actually an alien from another planet, and it's a whole thing. But the point of the movie is like the audience is almost more important than the show itself, because like it would be shown in theaters and people would dress up in costumes and like shout things at the screen and throw things and whatnot. And it's like yeah, Meg says it's very love or hate, and that's very true. It's like it's just having a community of queerness around you is kind of the point, regardless of like how good or bad the movie is, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, that definitely seems like having like loud queer representation is definitely important.
Yeah, and like I've seen it in different contexts. I've seen it just with my partner. I've seen it with a group of friends. I've seen it with a queer youth group, and then much later I saw it in a theater context, where people dressed up and stuff. And it's yeah, it's better if everyone's noisy and having a good time. Sealy Faye says, I have very positive feelings toward Rocky Horror. It's loud and it's queer, and that's very important to me. Meg says, I think it suffered a lot from changes in normative terminology since it was written. Yeah, like I think nowadays people wouldn't approve of a lot of the language they use in the movie. but I think that's okay.
Yeah, that's. I can imagine that would be a thing with things of this era.
For sure. Like like it's a musical, and one of the main songs in it is "I'm just a sweet transvestite from transsexual Transylvania,"
Ah,
and it's just like, trying to be uh, attention-getting and rebellious, I think. So
yeah, I've heard the phrase, but I didn't know it came from this till now.
yeah, and Meg says transgender wasn't even really a term then, and the meanings of all the terms used in it were quite different from now, and that's a really good point. Um, yeah, because like you can't really, even if you wanted to, use inoffensive terminology, you can't predict what the terminology is going to be 50 years from now, right? So
Yeah, true.
yeah. Yeah, so this is a movie that I've had mixed feelings about in the past, but and part of it was just that I didn't really like a lot of the music, um, but I like that it exists, if that makes sense, and it brings people together. So
Yeah.
the next one is Life of Brian, Monty Python's Life of Brian. This one came out in 1979. This is another one that I think probably wouldn't hold up very well, but that character on the left is Loretta, and she comes out as trans during this scene that's shown in this picture. And because part of the joke is that this is a group of revolutionaries. They want to change the world and stuff. And whenever they're talking about like, all men should have the right to be free, etc., Loretta always cuts in with men or women, and brothers or sisters, etc. And she's asked, why are you always going on about women? And she says, because I want to be one. And she's asked, why do you want to be a woman? And she says, because I want to have babies. And then the guy sitting next to her, Reg, says, you can't have babies. And she says, don't you oppress me. And he says, I'm not oppressing you. You haven't got a womb. Where's the fetus going to gestate? You're going to keep it in a box? and, and like in the end, yeah. And like it definitely doesn't hold up. And in the end, they decide that even if she doesn't have the ability to have babies, she should have the right to have babies. And then all the characters end up gendering her correctly in later scenes and using her new name and pronouns. And it doesn't really ever come up again, and I think that's great.
Oh, that is really nice.
Yeah. I think that's really cool. Going back to Rocky Horror, Meg says, I think There's a Light is a really good song, and the final medley is pretty potent. But Time Warp is just kind of silly, and I agree with that. But yeah, Life of Brian is it was kind of gonna be controversial no matter what, because it's about what if there was a guy who happened to be born at the same time and place as Jesus, and he keeps like getting mistaken for him and getting credit for miracles and things, and like so that's kind of the premise. But yeah, there just happens to be a trans character in it who ends up being treated really well, I think. So yeah, I haven't watched it in a long time, but I remember liking it. So yeah, Sealy Faye says she should have the right to have babies. It's true. Yeah, I think that's nice. And Meg says, sadly, several of Monty Python have now shown themselves to be horrifyingly transphobic. So that's unfortunate. But at the time, they did, I think, a pretty good job. Yeah. Yeah, let's go on to the next one. Oh, okay. So Crocodile Dundee. I also haven't watched this one in a long time, but there's a scene that I've never forgotten. I didn't remember exactly how it happened, but I remembered that this scene happened, and it's where he's introduced to an older lady who happens to have kind of a deep voice, and he grabs her crotch, right? And then you can see in the next slide her being really shocked by that, and then he says, nice to meet you, and he walks away. And the younger lady who had introduced them catches up to him, and he says, just making sure. And it's like, it doesn't even it's not even related to any of the rest of the plot or anything. This is just a random joke. And it's not even a trans character or a trans actor. It's just they happen to throw in this transphobic joke for no reason. And I've never forgotten it. And I hate it.
Is on mine.
Oh, I can hear you again, Garby.
Oh, sorry. I think it's on my end. Like, or I don't know whose end it's on. Like,
Huh?
connection issues or something. I don't know if it's on mine or your end.
Oh, okay. One of us got cut off from the other?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I can hear you again now, so that's good. So Megan says about Crocodile Dundee, I wonder if they thought that gendering her properly was funny. Yeah, it's kind of weird. I don't know why they did that. Yeah. So I'm going to move on to the next one. Okay. Dude Looks Like a Lady by Aerosmith. The song came out in 1987. And this is a really weird one. I've got really mixed feelings about it. It's okay, so this is another song that's basically about hooking up with a woman who turns out to be trans. And it basically, the song constantly misgenders the woman. Obviously it calls her dude right in the title. It calls her he at different points. And I recently looked up like the origin story of this song, and it's a little different than I expected, because so they were working with another songwriter called Desmond Child, and when they presented this song to him, they said they were originally going to sing it as "Cruisin' for the Ladies," and it wasn't going to be related to trans stuff at all, right? And this Desmond Child songwriter said, that's not a very good song. And they were like, well, we had this other idea, Dude Looks Like a Lady. But they were worried that it would be offensive to the gay community. And he said, well, I'm gay and I don't find it offensive at all. And so they did the song that way. And I find it so weird that they had this idea that it might be an offensive song, and they did it anyway. And it seems like they think of it as like an open-minded, accepting song, because the narrator character ends up sleeping with the trans character. But just the fact that they misgender her through the whole thing really kind of makes me mad. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's something I have like just heard I've heard like the lyrics, like the main. I know I like knew the existence of the song, and yeah, it's definitely a little
Yeah. And then they continued to like perform it in concerts and include it on greatest hits albums for like many years. So like they weren't worried about it apparently. So I don't know. And then so the person who wrote the movie Mrs. Doubtfire said that this song was the main influence for writing that script. Which is really weird, I think. What did I just do? Heck. I don't know if you can still see the...
Yeah, the stream ended on my end.
Oh, heck. Oh, I see. Okay, I'm still streaming to the channel, just not to the Discord, so that's good.
If it'd be easier, I could just watch via the Twitch.
Sure. Yeah, so really mixed feelings about this song, because it's like they wanted to do something good and accepting, and they just kind of messed it up. So that's weird. Oh, Sealy Faye commented, the borders between gay and trans weren't really well established till the 60s and 70s. Don't know by the 80s. Meg said, I think the shift was starting in the 80s, but wasn't really super complete till the 90s. You mentioned Mrs. Doubtfire and everything broke. stream is still live. It's back up and it looks great. Okay, cool. That's good. I think I'm gonna move on from dude looks like a lady. Okay. Super Mario Brothers 2, 1988. So one of the enemy characters, Birdo, was originally listed in the manual as Ostro and says he thinks he's a girl and he spits eggs from his mouth. He'd rather be called Birdetta. A lot of people already know about this, but I actually didn't know about it at the time. And it seems like since then, Nintendo just refers to the character as a female character. So they sort of like went back on that, and I think that was just a joke in the manual. But I guess some people like connect to it and like the idea that this non-human enemy dinosaur bird is trans. Sealyface says, I love Catherine. And Catherine is from a different game, hey? Different Nintendo game?
That's like a much later release, I believe.
Oh, is that from the RPG? Or something?
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
it's the Japanese name of the character. Oh, okay, I see. Oh, I didn't know that. I just learned something new. Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Okay, cool. But yeah, I didn't actually know about this one at the time. I only played this game at my friend's house, so I didn't even have the manual. And the Birdetta joke is that she prefers Kathy. Oh, interesting. Huh. Well, that's cool. Thanks for the info. Yeah, and then, okay. So this one, Meg says, I think I have the manual around somewhere still. That's awesome. So Silence of the Lambs was released in 1991, and gosh, this is a tough one because this was a really popular, well-received movie. It got like awards and stuff, but it's so transphobic. Oh my gosh. It's like about a serial killer who turns out to be trans and is like I guess captures people and like takes them apart and uses their body parts in order to like experiment with gender, and it's just horrifying. And like it's like creates a strong association between like gender dysphoria issues and violence. It's just and I saw it when I was a teenager, and I like I don't really know how I felt about it at the time, but I have strong negative feelings about it now. Yeah. So I don't know. Have you seen this one, Garby?
I have not seen this.
And this isn't the only one I'm going to talk about today that associates trans stuff with violence. It's it was kind of, I think it was like a popular idea that like trans people are either violent, like if they're not victims of violence, then they're violent themselves, or like they're unpredictable in some way or something like that. You know what I mean? And and like it seems like, I don't know. It seems like a lot of people didn't really question it.
Like, I guess, so it looks like Freya says that sounds cute. Like,
I assume that's referring to the previous thing we were talking about.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
The Mario 2.
Yeah, oh.
Yeah, there's like gonna be a time lag between how long it takes people to comment and when we see it and stuff. So.
Oh yeah.
No.
Oh.
Oh, I was wrong.
Okay.
Freya says no. Body horror aesthetic is cute to us.
Like, I guess. Yeah.
Meg points out that was also the twist of Psycho, which is true, and it was a much earlier movie where it's like, and maybe that's what, I don't know. Maybe that started the idea in the mainstream of like a trans person being a serial killer and things of that nature. But yeah.
Oh.
Sealyface says, back to Birdo, the Birdo thing is actually a really interesting case for Japanese culture reasons. Catherine is an okama, which is a third gender in Japanese culture that's similar to a drag queen in the US. But don't let me derail your talk, we can chat later. Thanks so much for that info. I actually didn't know that either.
Oh, yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't either. Nice. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Let's move on from Silence of the Lambs. Oh, the next thing is The Crying Game from 1992. This is a very sad movie, and it has to do with it takes place in Ireland, and it has to do with like oh gosh, the details of the plot escape me, but there's like spying, and there's like people who have to take other people prisoner, and like things of that nature. And the guy that you can see in the background there ends up witnessing the death of that woman's boyfriend, and he had kidnapped the guy, and he had like promised him that he would make sure his girlfriend is okay. So later he meets the girlfriend, and and they get into a relationship, and then he finds out that she's trans. And then there's a really weird scene where he's like he's so shocked by this, and so like he wasn't expecting her to be trans, and he ends up throwing up, and it's like, and she's just sort of sitting on the couch being like sad, and like, I don't know, it's really upsetting. And so, I mean, the movie goes on from there, and he ends up still being in love with her, but it's not a happy movie, basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a very serious movie, and it's like supposed to be a big twist that she's trans, right? The audience is supposed to be really surprised, and like yeah, it's like it's been a really long time since I've seen it, but it's yeah, so there's like this association between like spying and transness as well. It's like to do with deception in a way, and that just sort of gives me bad feelings.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, like I know there was a similar scene in like Family Guy that happened. That was like I don't remember the exact time of that, but it was quite a bit later. And yeah, that was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was later joke in Family Guy where the dog character sleeps with someone and then finds out that she's trans, and he throws up for like a full 30 seconds. And like, yeah, I think the Crying Game might be the first time that happened, and it's more serious. It's not a joke. But yeah, then it got turned into a joke. Meg says longer than 30 seconds.
Yeah, Family Guy has a tendency for things to go on for like a lot longer than they need to.
Yeah, Meg says, I'm pretty sure the scene goes on for a full minute or more. That's a long time for like a, I assume like a 25-minute cartoon. But yeah. Anyway, then so these are all pretty similar time periods. 1991, Silence of the Lambs. 92, The Crying Game. 93, and Butterfly. And this is this one's by what's his name, Cronenberg. And it's David Cronenberg. And it's like it's another spy thing, but it takes place in China, and it's based on a true story. A French guy falls in love with a Chinese woman. Well, he first sees her in a theater show where she's playing a woman. Or actually, I guess I should. Now I'm thinking I should refer to the character by he/him pronouns, because I don't remember from watching the movie because it's been such a long time, but I get the impression that the character is a man who's pretending to be a woman, not a trans woman. And the whole idea is to seduce and deceive this French guy in order to spy. And they're in a relationship for 20 years. And apparently he never realizes that he's been deceived. And at one point, she adopts a baby in order to convince the guy that they've had a baby together. And like, so in this case, I found an interview with David Cronenberg where he talks about it, and he says people were surprised that he would do a movie like this, and he says it's not surprising because a lot of his films deal with identity and transformation of the body. And then he goes on to say it wasn't meant to be a surprise that the character is a man. It's about deception and self-deception, but the audience isn't supposed to be deceived, right? And I don't know. It's another one of those things. Like, this was just, I think this is kind of a theme in how trans stuff was presented in the media, is that it's all about deception. And so it's associated with spies and things like that. It's really weird. Yeah, I'm going to go on to the next thing. Oh, I gave that warning at the beginning that there would be something that looks like nudity, but it's not. It's a bodysuit. So this is Marilyn Manson. And I really liked Marilyn Manson for a while as a teenager. And a big part of it was this sort of androgynous or gender fluid sort of presentation that I was very intrigued by. And Marilyn Manson was very controversial. Like, the whole band was made up of people who like played around with gender and how they dressed and also how they named themselves. Each one of them was named after both like a female model or sex symbol and and a serial killer. So this is another thing that's like, in a way, associating gender stuff or trans stuff with violence or serial killers. But I didn't even think about that at the time. And I actually named, my family got a cat when I was 14, and I named the cat Gidget after Gidget Gein from Marilyn Manson. But yeah, I was really interested in partly a big part of it was the gender stuff and how they presented themselves. They were very controversial though, and this music video for Dope Show that this image is from was very controversial, I remember. Yeah, there's not much more to say about that, I think. I just like, I was like, wow, this is really cool. I didn't know why. I thought it was cool. Yeah. Yeah. And then what's the next thing? Okay, Ace Ventura. I have so many feelings about this. Gosh. So I remember liking this movie. I remember my whole family liking this movie. Ace Ventura Pet Detective came out in 1994. And it's a silly character interacting with cute animals and solving a mystery. Like, it sounds right up my alley, but the whole plot hinges so much on such a transphobic idea. Chaya Aaron says, I knew Ace Ventura would show up. And okay, my cat is crawling on my desk. I'm just gonna see if I can show him off for a sec, and then I'm gonna kick him off the desk.
Cat!
Go on, buddy. Okay. So, the character, she's like the chief of police or something like that, and what is her name? I can't remember her name, but at one point she kisses Ace Ventura for no reason, and he says, "Your gun is digging into my hip," and then later he realizes that she is she's trans and she's this ex-football player who's involved in the mystery he's trying to solve. And as soon as he realizes that, there's like a long scene, it's like a couple of minutes long, where he's like throwing up and he gets into the shower to like clean himself off. He like brushes his teeth, he like puts a plunger on his face, on his mouth. He's like is chewing like a whole pack of gum at the same time. Like this one is I think really probably more the inspiration for those horrible Family Guy jokes than the Crying Game. That's just my suspicion. But yeah, so there's that scene, which is bad enough in itself. But then at the end of the movie, when he's revealing all of this to everyone else, so there's a room full of cops, basically, and he strips her clothes off in front of everyone, so she's left in just her underwear and her bra, to try and prove that she doesn't have a typical female body.
Oh.
Right?
Oh no.
I know, right? But she does appear to have a typical female body, but then he grabs her and bends her over to reveal that she's got like lumps under her butt that's supposed to be her genitals tucked back. And then all the cops in the room start throwing up.
And
I mean, it's horrifying, and I can't believe that I forgot about all this.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
it's so terrible, and I'm so mad. And I went to try and see if I could find reviews of it from the time, and it got mixed reviews. Some people liked it, and some people didn't. And like, I kind of get the impression that people didn't really talk about transphobia at that time, 1994, because the words they used were misogyny and homophobia. Which is really interesting in itself. And I looked up the word transphobia in the dictionary, and they said that the first known use of the word transphobia is from 1992. And it was added to the dictionary in like 1998 or something like that. Anyway, so that's a tangent that I think is really interesting. But yeah, I'm just horrified by this movie. I rewatched those couple of scenes, and it was really upsetting. And I can't believe that I liked this movie, and my whole family liked this movie. Like we just thought it was like a funny comedy. Like, gosh, what was wrong with us?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at with that. It's weird how like you forget things, you know what I mean? And how your feelings about things changes over time as you learn more about stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, do you have anything like that where it's like you thought it was normal at the time and then years later you're like, I cannot believe that?
So there's one TV show, King of the Hill. There was one joke that one part that I didn't really think of where like there was like as a way of like insulting one of the people, they use a trans character's girl's like dead name and call that person that, and I didn't really think of it that much at the time, but
Right.
Now watching it back, it's like yikes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I get that. So that is a weird one, and Ace Ventura is the whole reason I thought to do this presentation in the first place, because it's so upsetting.
It's definitely hard to like when you watch shows like this. It's definitely hard to like not come across any like casual transphobia.
Yeah, for sure. And Luna says Futurama for me. Oh, I don't know what happened in that show, but yeah, oftentimes it's the stuff you watch when you're young. That stuff that's like intended for young people. That has those kind of jokes. So, yeah, I'm gonna. I think I'll move on to the next one. Tu Wong Fu, thanks for everything. Julie Newmar is a long-titled movie that came out in 1995, and I remember this one being pretty good. I admit that I didn't do any research about this before today, but it's basically a movie about. So all three of them perform as drag queens, and they decide to go on a road trip together. But one of them turns out to actually be a trans woman, and it's a fun movie that's generally light, but there are some really scary scenes. Like there's one scene where a cop pulls them over, and the trans woman is driving, and her ID says male on it, right? So she's really scared because she doesn't want to show the license to the cop. Stuff like that happens. They end up having to stay in a small town for a while, and they're worried about revealing that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure all three of them present as women the whole time. I think. Can't quite remember. But at least the main woman is really worried about revealing that she's trans. And she makes a friend in the small town. And in the end, it's revealed that her friend knows, she realizes that she's trans, and she doesn't care. And the way she says it is she points out that the trans woman has an Adam's apple, and she says, not many women have Adam's apples, but I guess that just means I'm really lucky to have a woman friend that happens to have an Adam's apple.
Oh.
And so like that's her way of saying that she's accepting, and I think it has a pretty nice ending. Can't quite remember, but I think it's a pretty nice movie. So
I think, like, to an extent, showing like real problems that trans people face can be like helpful in like enlightening the problems people go through, like with the ID and things like that. I don't know, like I didn't see it, so I don't know how, if she's presented. I hope that she's presented in like it's like treated as like a sympathetic in a like that kind of way.
Yeah, for sure, definitely a sympathetic portrayal, I think. Yeah. Yeah, I don't have too much more to say about that one, but I thought it was good to include a positive representation in here because we've had a bunch of negative ones. Yeah. Okay, Mulan technically isn't about a trans character, but I wanted to include it because I have a lot of feelings about it. Because obviously Mulan is a girl who joins the military, and she pretends to be a man because only men are allowed in the military. Like a lot of trans masculine people really connect with this movie and really relate to it. Freya says, "Heck yes, Mulan." And one of the interesting things about it is that the guy she falls in love with also falls in love with her, and it seems like he's falling in love with her when she's dressed as a man, and so it seems like a lot of people read him as bisexual for that reason. But at the end of the movie, she stops dressing as a man, and it seems like she's happy to go back to living as a woman. But also at the beginning of the movie, she had been like struggling to present in a feminine way that her family wanted her to. Like she's trying to do makeup properly. She's trying to wear fancy clothes properly. She's, things like that. And it sort of points out that gender is a performance for everyone, whether you're trans or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you have to learn how to perform gender properly, and it might not come naturally to you, even if you're cisgender. Yeah. And I read a thing. I just want to read it here. Okay, so I read an article. Oh gosh. I read an article that said, "It sucks to have to do the work to see yourself in media without representation, but when I look back, I instead think about how that's also been a queer tradition for us, as long as queer people have been ostracized by societies, and in a world that doesn't want you to exist, taking up your own space can have its own power. So that's talking about Mulan, like sort of being representation for people because we make it representation for us in a way. And then there's a comment on that. Oh, that wasn't an article, it was a video essay. And there's a comment under that video that says, as a trans man, reflection has stuck with me ever since I watched Mulan as a teenager. I think the moment it became more to me, though, was when I heard Caleb Hyles. I don't know who that is, but he's a singer. I heard Caleb Hyles singing it. I was a fan of his covers. I've heard so many cover artists change lyrics to not sing wrong pronouns for themselves. The thing that Caleb does is he doesn't tend to change lyrics unless adding his own verses, etc., etc. But the lyrics for Reflection stayed the same, so lines like "I will never pass for a perfect bride" or "a perfect daughter" were being sung by a man, and I think he did this on purpose. This broke me a little. I was so used to hearing the original feminine voice that hearing a male voice felt like hearing my subconscious singing the song versus hearing myself out loud. So I thought that was a really interesting comment about the song Reflection, and I really like that.
Oh, that's super nice.
Yeah. Meg commented, the elephant in the room on this is that none of these trans people are played by trans people and are largely trans women played by cis men, although some are queer of some sort at least. Yeah, that's a good point. And then Jaya Aaron says Reflection is a trans anthem. And Meg says TERFs get real mad about trans readings of Mulan. Jaya Aaron says that's a YouTube singer. Yeah, so if you want to look that up, the name again was Caleb Hyles, Hyles, and you can hear Reflection. Yeah, I think that's all I had to say about Mulan. It's not about a trans character, but a lot of trans people connect to it, and I do too. So it's like just the fact of seeing a character like trying to dress in a way that reflects a different gender than they had presented as previously is kind of a queer experience. So Chaya Aaron says, dude's done a ton of covers of popular music. He's lovely.
I'll definitely check that person out. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of songs that I like, but just the pronouns in the song are wrong and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. What's next? Ocarina of Time. Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time came out in 1998. And this is a game where Zelda... Okay, so Zelda sometimes is dressed as a male character called Shake. And it's one of those ones where, like, some people read... Well, I think most people read Zelda as being a female person who was dressed as a man in order to be in disguise. But some people like to read it as Zelda being sort of gender fluid. And I think that's a really interesting interpretation. And like, I like that different people can read things in their own way that makes them happy, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that is super cool.
Yeah, and it's like, it's kind of a weird one because it's like Zelda was, was in disguise and was able to fight and was not being a damsel in distress kind of character. But then at the very end of the game, all of a sudden, she is sort of in need of rescuing by Link. So it sort of switches at the very end, so she reverts to like a damsel in distress. So that's kind of weird. But at the same time, it's really interesting that she lived as a male person for 7 years, apparently, in the backstory of this game. And, like a lot of people, I don't think would be really comfortable with that unless they were, like, kind of gender fluid in a way. Just one sec, I've just got to cough some more, so I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, Garbi.
That I played Ocarina of Time, but I haven't really. It's been a while. I haven't really thought much on this part, but yeah, it's really. But yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Oh gosh, we're running out of time. I'm going to skip ahead. Oh, Jerry Springer. Oh gosh, terrible, problematic show.
oh,
So you can see that the title of this episode that I screenshotted here was Explosive Transsexual Affairs. And this aired in 1998. And it's where this guy comes on the show to tell his fiance that he's been cheating on her with a trans woman. And it's like, it doesn't make a ton of sense as something someone would really do in real life, but like part of the thing about Jerry Springer is that he paid his guests, and so a lot of the times the guests would be people who really need money, and I think that's part of the reason a lot of the guests were trans people, is because like it was legal to fire people for being trans. You know what I mean?
oh,
So anyway, I never watched Jerry Springer, but I was definitely aware of it, and definitely a common theme was shocking reveals that people are trans and that kind of thing. And then the next thing is the song Jerry Springer by Weird Al from 1999, and it definitely references that kind of thing a lot. There's like the word she-male is used in the song. There's at least 3 different references to trans stuff in this song, and it doesn't really hold up today, I think, because of the language that's used. So yeah, it was a parody of 1 Week by Bare Naked Ladies. So what's the next thing? Boys Don't Cry from 1999. It was a very sad movie based on a real person, a trans man who had a tough life, and then I believe was sexually assaulted and then murdered. And I never watched this movie, but I was aware of it, and I never watched it because it sounded really, really sad. And it's like the good thing is that it's like a sympathetic representation of a trans person. The bad thing is that it's really, really sad. World's Worst First Dates. Okay, this was a book. I don't remember the exact title, and I was unable to find it by Googling it. But it was just a bunch of like people talking about weird or funny first dates that they had, and one of them was a guy. I distinctly remember a guy went on a date with a woman, and they had a great time, and then he found out that she's trans, and he ran out, and he said, "I think that I was polite enough to stop and say before I left, thank you for telling me. Good luck with the surgery." And that's like one of the things that happened is that she said, "I have something to tell you." And he said, "What, are you a convict? Are you married? I don't care." And she said that she's trans, and that was a deal breaker. And those other things were not. So but yeah, I don't know the exact name of the book. So okay, jumping ahead to the present, things I really like. The Sims 4 really recently has more options for gender stuff for your characters. You can decide if they can get pregnant or not. You can decide if they wear feminine or masculine clothing. You can decide like what their body type is and what their face looks like, and like whether they sit down to pee. Like all these things are separate from each other, right? You've got a lot of control over gender characteristics of your characters. I like that. Our Flag Means Death is a show I really like, and this character Jim is a non-binary pirate who uses they/them pronouns, and everyone respects their pronouns. Umbrella Academy, the character Victor came out as trans in season 3 because the actor that plays him did Elliot Page. And I really like the way that they did this coming out plot. It was actually really cute how the whole family was really accepting about it. So, in conclusion, the whole atmosphere in the 90s around trans stuff felt very oppressive and kind of sad and kind of violent. And I just think it's such a big difference between then and now. And it really makes me glad to see representation like what we've got now. And audience questions, we don't have time, but I really appreciate everyone's comments throughout the whole presentation. So I want to say thank you very much to everyone for watching and for chatting. And thank you so much, Garbi, for being here and chatting. And
Yeah.
yeah,
That was so much fun.
I hope everyone enjoys the rest of the day. The next thing we've got coming up is Sayonara Wild Hearts Analysis by Freya Spirit. So thank you, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye. Oh, this is the camera. Bye.